Hello, everyone. Welcome to our next live stream. And I'm saying next because I've already actually kind of lost count of how many we did, but we did a lot for the past 2 months. And the last two were like live codings from me, and apparently you guys enjoyed it quite a lot. I think only on my Twitter account, like 600 unique viewers. That's quite a lot for seeing me suffer trying to figure out Angular signal forms. But yeah, today we are back to our previous format. We have a great guest and we have a very interesting topic. We're going to talk about Taiga UI, which is, if you don't know, it's not super popular, but it's a very great, I would say, component library with a lot of interesting things and features going on. And who is better to talk about it than Alex Inkin himself? Hey, Alex, welcome.
Hey,
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm kind of tired,
Yeah,
working
I hear.
hard to
Yeah,
reach
I
a
I
new
hear you have
major.
been working on it, right, today?
Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, everyone, if you are not aware, Taiga UI is an Angular component library, and Alex is working on it tirelessly, as far as I understand. Yeah. Uh, the great thing about today is that I am not super familiar with Taiga UI. I have done some things with it. I really enjoyed the event manager plugins, right? They're really great, super underrated. We're gonna probably talk about that too a bit later. But yeah, today let's make this about Taiga UI. Let's talk it. Let's understand how it works. Let's understand what it brings to the table, and maybe more people actually should adopt it. We know the heavyweights. We know all the problems that other components have, and we know all the great features that other component libraries have. But let's see what we can know about Taiga UI. I'm not an expert on it, so Alex, what are like the good parts?
source code. If you
Okay.
go to GitHub and check out the source code, uh, you might be surprised about many cool features there. It's a comment that we hear a lot. Like people say they learned a lot from looking into source code. When you come to like material source code, there's like 2,000 lines for a component that's relatively simple,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard to figure out what goes there. Of course, there's a lot of stuff that accumulates over time, and they need to support many um, elements that are built
Yeah.
on top of there, like Angular CDK and stuff like that. There's a lot of maybe legacy stuff that is hard to take out when you don't do major breaking changes every now and then. And in our case, the fifth version is coming soon. We're currently working hard on that.
Yeah.
And every major release is like a fresh air. Like you can finally drop all the legacy stuff. And we do it like once a year, maybe. So it's the fifth one. The first one that went open source was 2.0.
Yeah.
And then we had 3.0, 4, and which is current version, and the fifth is coming soon. And we mostly try to keep the minimum Angular version pretty low so everybody can use it, not like following
No.
the latest version. So the fifth one will be Angular 19 at the minimum. And currently you can use it with all Angular 16 and above with the fourth major release. So it's also very exciting for us to do a next major one because we get to use new features from the framework. We bump the minimal
Yeah.
version. We decided to go with the 19th this
Okay.
time because this is the one that goes to the long-term support after the
Yeah.
21st comes out. So that's what we try to focus on. And well,
Have you switched to like signal inputs and stuff?
yeah, that's the
Oh,
next
yeah.
big thing. So basically, we refactored mostly everything we wanted to before the next major release, and we now need to switch everything to the signal inputs, because we actually were using on push on every component, and heavily relied on getters from the get-go. So
Yeah.
if you look at the Taiga source code from like 5 years ago, you wouldn't find much of manual state management inside components. All of those things were done via getters and input values. And I've done some talks about the performance implications of that. So basically, if you're using on push and all your getters are just math, or they concatenate strings and all that, they don't create arrays or objects, then you're good. You don't need to optimize that. But definitely now that we have signals and compute it, it would be more performant, and you don't need to worry about arrays and objects and the heavy operations there. But like I said, it should be pretty easy for us because we already were using reactive declarative way of writing code, and all of our internal state was not managed manually through like in G on change. It was all computed from the input values.
That's really interesting, and I want to kind of talk for a minute about the source code thing, because my entire life, at least like the last 10 years, I've been working usually with PrimeNG. It wasn't like a subjective choice, more of like, okay, I'm working on a project that is already built with PrimeNG. I don't have any negative stuff to say about it. There are a lot of positives too, but I had to go deep inside the source code. And sometimes there are great things. For example, I could like showcase that in PrimeNG that there is this sort of consistent approach that all components kind of look the same. So if you look at one component, figure out how they structure their code, you can easily like read everything else. But I would have to admit that there's also a lot of mess going on there, which is, understandable. It's a big library, lots of components, and they all are always quite fast, usually on rolling out support for new Angular versions and so on. So it's kind of hard to keep up. And yeah, code sometimes is messy, and sometimes when you are developing something actually complex, you might run into issues with libraries, and you need to be able to go into the source code and read and understand. Maybe there's an issue in the library. Maybe at that point you could help with contributing, or maybe at least like structure your app in a way that that issue doesn't drag you down when you're developing something. So yeah, good source code is great when you are developing. It can be useful. So I really appreciate that a lot. And also, yeah, sure, of course, you can learn a lot of stuff from open source software, and if you're an Angular dev, definitely take a look at how people develop reusable components, UI components, because it will help with kind of sharpening your own code style and your own thinking about components too. I really appreciate that. So yeah, that's great that you kind of place it on the top priority, that yeah, our best strength is our source code. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't want to like be rude or dunk on other libraries. To be honest, I barely ever look at the source code of other libraries when we develop something for ourselves. Uh, and sometimes when you get stuck and you think how to do something, you might want to go to see how other people did it. But it was barely ever the case with Taiga. So mostly those ideas are original, and some of them are later like propagate to other things that I'm not claiming they come from Taiga, but probably just the same thought comes to many minds. Like we had DI tokens for settings for a while,
Yeah.
and utility helpers to provide the settings for components, so we can change the default values that those components have. And the Angular started to use the same approach with like provide app initializer helper, things like that, to hide away the tokens and in one helper. So um, one other thing that I would probably highlight is the decomposition. It's like my favorite subject in programming, and this is what we heavily implement in Taiga. So it was always the idea to have the library work like pieces of Lego blocks that you can
Yeah.
declaratively stack together and everything works. So if there's something you need and it's not in the library, usually you would be able to just come up with the thing you need from basic blocks that Taiga UI provides. We're a bit like lower level library than your regular ones. So
Yeah.
sometimes it might be hard on people because they need to combine more things into one than just like have a, how we say, the Swiss Army knife, right? When
Yeah.
everything is in one stuff, in one thing. And in our case, it's not like that. And the decomposition part is something that I really, really love, especially with the newer versions of Angular, where you have the directive composition API, although it has its issues, and I'm heavily pushing every time on those issues for Angular team to address.
Yeah.
There's like 100 likes on those already, so I think they're on the radar, but I'm not sure when they will be fixed. But trying to work around those, even though they can really be a problem with direct composition API, still most of the time you can work around the
Yeah.
issues like multiple matching of same directive and not being able to control inputs of directives that are on the host. These two are
Yeah.
the biggest hurdles there.
Okay, I'm gonna go the let's do something controversial route, and I'm gonna ask you. Probably don't like the selectorless ideas.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
would
I
kind of.
hate it.
Uh, but do you think it brings anything of benefit? Like, yeah, sure, we
I've been trying to
understand.
figure this out for a while because, to be honest, I could hear that it's bullshit when they phrase it like you don't need to do another import because nobody does the imports. I mean, I know that probably VS Code has some issues with imports or so, but I'm using WebStorm and I never ever
Yeah,
look at imports. The automatic lint fixes everything for me. They are always hidden up above. Unused imports are automatically removed. The imports is not an issue. Nobody ever thought, I wish I didn't have to write import twice. Like this is not a
hmm,
problem that developers face.
yeah,
So when I tried to push some Angular devs on that, probably what I figured is that the reason is that it's necessary for how do you call it, progressive compilation or something like that. So the
incremental
compiler,
compilation, I think. Yeah,
yeah, so the compiler knows that it needs to
yeah,
only compile a little piece of code, not the whole thing. So it probably a good reason to speed everything up because like our
yeah.
Taiga portal takes 15 seconds to recompile when you change anything.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it's gonna be a welcoming change, I guess. But I didn't like the idea that it was pushed like a solution to an issue we didn't have instead of speaking plainly about what's the actual benefit of this. And
yeah.
to be honest, the overhype of this thing was getting on my nerves a bit. I might be a little straight shooter when it comes to these discussions, so if I sound rude,
No, no, shoot
sorry about
away.
that.
I
In
think.
Taiga, we have a lot of clever selectors like combining knots and automatically matching some things, and
Yeah,
we really use selector a lot. So I'm not sure how can be done without selector all those things. And to be honest, I
yeah.
don't really want to think about
Essentially,
it. Why
yeah.
do you change that?
I think like when I look at selectorless and I think about components, well, usually, I mean, by the way, if you're watching this and you're unaware, you can also make component selectors that are not like custom elements. You can bind components to other attributes or whatever.
Yeah,
That's not
I've
super
seen,
popular in, yeah,
I've seen the comments on the RFC about selectors. Like people were excited that they don't need to create like app button. They can use selectorless on button, but
yeah,
you could do that from the get go. It was always the case. You could
yeah.
use attribute selectors, and more
And
people
kind
should
of
know that.
the selectorless stuff kind of limits that, and especially it limits a lot about directives because now directives will have to be essentially attributes if you think about it like uh,
Yeah.
from the perspective of the code.
Sometimes I
And
also have like multiple inputs of the same name feeding to multiple things. Now I
yeah,
would have to put them separately. Like one example that I've been working on right now is the new dialogues for Taiga, and we have a host directive that is using generics. So
Yeah.
we put it on the component, we add the inputs so they can be fed into it, but it doesn't know the type. So I just create the same input with the same name inside the component and just use it for the types.
Yeah.
So I define it there, and it works automatically because the name is the same. But with a selectorless stuff, I would have to like separately
Yeah.
put the directives there, and I don't even know how to feed the type to it in that case, if it's even possible. So I don't see much benefits in the selectorless stuff for me as a
Yeah.
developer.
And I bet it would be a very big breaking change for you guys, right?
Yeah, well, I hope that they will support the two options. I mean, both ways of doing it for a while, and eventually, I don't know. I mean, to me, Angular team is a brilliant team that only had like two bad ideas in my memory. One is the selectorless, and the other one is DOM ref. If you remember that thing, we managed to push
Don't worry.
back
Ah,
the
yeah,
directive. Yeah,
yeah, I think I heard
there was
about
an
that.
RFC, and I've pushed hard against it because it would be terrible for me making the native DOM elements not accessible at constructor phase. It
Yeah.
would break a shit ton of stuff for me. So I'm glad that this idea was pushed aside. I don't know if it comes back sometime.
So far as we know,
Yeah.
I think Selectorless is not that close to coming live,
Well,
right? It's not.
I don't know when
I'm
it's
not.
coming. My bigger concern is when the selector is going away. So this is
Yeah.
probably even further
Yeah.
down the line.
Yeah, definitely a couple of years, I guess. That's a real big change. So I guess like for example, we got the new control flow syntax, right? It was 1.5 years ago.
Yeah, it's quite
And we
awesome.
still have ngIf and ngSwitch and so on, and those are deprecated, but I bet for a year or two those are not going to be removed so far. And even considering how easy it is actually to move to control flow, you have the migration, you have all the opportunities to kind of check how it works. It's quite straightforward, but selectorless is way bigger, way bigger. Oh, okay. I wanna put us back on track. We talked about selectorless for a while. We're here to talk about Taiga UI. So maybe a bit of a cliche question, but it's really interesting. Like, what's your like favorite component?
Oh, the
Which one is the most like pleasure to work with?
they're all pretty easy to work with for me, but the most complex thing that I've
Yeah.
worked on in Taiga is probably the active zone directive. This is
Okay.
a directive that tracks where the user is working with. So, like when the user clicks on the button, the drop down's open, and when he clicks away, we need to close the drop down.
Yeah.
Same thing when the user navigates with the keyboard, they can open the drop down like arrow button down,
Oh yeah.
and when they hit tab to focus something outside of the host of the drop down or outside the drop down, we also need to close it. So this is a directive that watches for two things: for the mouse down event, because that's the event
Yeah.
that moves the focus away, and the focus event itself. So it watches for the keyboard as well. I think I've published an article on Angular Space about it. Maybe not. Maybe it was before Angular Space was there, but
I think
it's
I've
like,
read the one that you wrote about the event plugin. We're gonna circle back to that a bit later, I think.
yeah. So
Yeah.
this is the most complicated stuff, and it hopefully doesn't break often, because this is like
Yeah.
one thing that is a huge RxJS stream that watches for all the events, and we need to be able to react to them synchronously. So when like if you write like current element blur to lose
Yeah.
focus, it needs to immediately close. So the very next line, it's already closed. So those are technical restraints that we had, and it's pretty complicated stuff. So yeah, and the one that you mentioned, the event plugins, is also one of my favorite things. I started my tech writing from
Yeah.
the event plugins. My very first article was about that thing. It was like 5 years ago or something.
Yeah.
And the two things that were born out of Taiga UI when it was still not published to open source are two libraries: is the ng event plugins and the ng polymorphius.
Yeah.
It's a library we use a lot in Taiga. It's like when in Angular, you can have ng component outlet, ng template outlet, or you can like just use curly braces to uh, interpolate a string or like a call function. And polymorphius is like a universal outlet that you can feed everything into, whether it's a template or a component or a function that returns a string, and it would use it as a content for the block that you're trying to define. It's a really helpful
Yeah.
thing because it frees your mind from thinking about what you're gonna feed to the component. Instead, you just feed it content, and it has some
Mm.
context in which this content is instantiated. So
Ah,
it's something that you can use for like dialogues, for customizing your drop-down items, using avatars there, like
yeah.
uh, when your item in a drop down is like an object with a name, last name, or something, you can just feed it to a function that concatenates it as a string.
Ah,
So it's a very cool stuff. I've had an article about it, but it's pretty old. So probably
yeah.
at some point I'm gonna refresh it because some time passed since then. The paradigms shifted a little. We now can feed inputs to those dynamic
All right.
components and all that. So this is on the back on
Yeah.
my to-do list. Yeah.
By the way, if you're watching this and you don't know what is a event plugin, essentially in Angular there is this super powerful thing that lots of people don't know about, which allows you kind of defining custom events that you actually can use in your template. So, like there is the things that you already can use, stuff like you can put like brackets and say click or double click or whatever and bind it to a handler method in your component. You can define more complex event using the event plugin.
Yeah,
And
Angular actually has
yeah,
one plugin built in, which is like a
yeah,
key down answer. If you ever thought of
yep,
how it does this work, it works through plugins, and you can write your own like that. And in Taiga, we write like click dot prevent to automatically prevent default or stop propagation. It's super handy, very good
yeah,
developer experience with those things.
yeah,
So
quite neat.
this is a
Uh,
library I use all the time when I work with Angular. I
yeah,
don't really see myself going back to regular.
so yeah, if you are not using Taiga UI in general as a component library, at least you should be using the event plugin
Yeah, it's very
because yeah,
tiny.
it gives really good yeah developer experience. Absolutely enjoyable. And by the way, one thing when I browsed through like Taiga UI docs, I realized you have quite decent support for mobile interactions and stuff, but I haven't had the chance to check. So what's interesting going on there?
Yeah, it's a thing that we want to expand upon.
Yeah.
It's in our plans. So, for example, we have like a mobile bottom sheet type of dialogue,
Uh-huh.
uh, and we have like a service that detects whether are you using a mobile user agent or desktop, and if it's a mobile, it automatically shows you
Yeah.
dialogue in that presentation instead of regular modal. And there are some components that look differently on mobile if you enable the mobile styles. Like a checkbox looks like a native checkbox on iOS or Android. There's a toggle there. I think it's called switch. Yeah, a
Yeah.
switch that looks like material switch on Android and native iOS switch on iOS and other things like that. A lot of our apps are using WebView, so this is something we try to support. And when some bugs come up with WebView, we try to fix it as soon as possible. One exception is the iOS 26, right? This stuff
Yeah.
broke everything, including Apple's own website. So
Oh,
it's not
really?
something.
I
Yeah,
never
well, they
used an iPhone. I'm not aware.
my take is that if you're a web developer, it's immoral to use iPhone because you just have to know how much blood, sweat, and tears comes into every page that you load in Safari.
Yeah, I had experience with Safari on the desktop side of the things. Like we had after EA got
Yeah.
shipped off, the next bad thing was working with Safari, and no one
The biggest
actually had
problem
like
with
yeah.
Safari is that it's the only browser on iPhone. So unless you want to
Oh,
cut off the richest part of your audience, you have to support Safari.
yeah. And as far as I understand, I recently heard that like even like Google Chrome on iOS is
Yes.
actually using
Every
Safari and
browser
using
on iOS
WebKit.
is Safari in a plastic bag, in a
Yeah.
paper bag. So that this is something that everybody should know because this is like the real monopoly, the only actually real monopoly that strangles the progress is the
Yeah.
iOS browser. They fought it in European Union. I'm not a big fan of EU regulation practices, but this is like one thing that they done right is force Apple to be able to install real Chrome.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how it works there. I'm not a EU resident. I don't know how to install the real Chrome on iPhone, but at least it's probably possible somewhere. But the iOS 26 with the glass stuff, it
Yeah.
broke all the fixed and sticky positioning. Even
Wow.
Apple's own website had a sticky top address bar, which went away when you scroll. Everything is broken there. I'm not sure when they are gonna fix it. There was a bug with that, and they said it's something not in Safari itself, but in up
In like the
in the
website
OS
itself.
level. So I don't know. This is something that
It's fascinating because like we always hear about how design and everything on iOS is supposed to be better. I'm not a user. I don't care if anyone is using an iPhone or whatever, but my general like opinion was that in terms of design, it should be kind of easier to interact with it. But apparently, the more you learn,
yeah, well, it's probably a good device because a lot of people like it. But every time
yeah,
I come into contact with iPhones, I hate a lot of stuff about it, like minor little things that
yeah.
get on my nerves. I know it's like a pet peeve or something like that, but it's just not my device. I prefer Android.
Do you have something in Taiga UI where you could say like detect if this is iOS or whatever, and then do something
Yeah,
like a utility?
a few
Yeah,
places there. There's a easy CSS hack with supports and the
yeah,
special stuff that only Safari supports, which you can use to override some styles. Because the problem with Safari is not that it doesn't support some API. The problem is that it says it supports this API, but it's broken in
yeah,
many cases. In some deep nested flex layout, it starts to fall apart, and it's even hard to reproduce it because it's just some fundamental stuff deep
yeah,
down in the rendering goes off. So yeah, and in JavaScript as well, of course, we have some workarounds, especially with like a out of focus on iOS showing keyboard. It's absolute mess because when you focus an input with JavaScript, it doesn't show a keyboard, and you cannot
yeah.
even summon the
Okay.
keyboard when you tap it back. But if it's already focused, and you have to create like a ghost input somewhere, move focus there,
Oh,
then
really?
back. It's a complete mess. But
That's interesting. I've never heard about that issue, but sounds really bad.
yeah, it's best to just not use out of focus on
Yeah,
iOS at all. The keyboard moves stuff around, everything jumps, and all the over scrolls, absolute positioning goes off. So yeah, it's crazy there.
I'm looking actually right now at the chart components on Taiga, and I'm interested if they are like fully sort of native or is something else also used with them to generate the charts.
The charts are pretty simple there. It's just
Yeah,
SVGs. They were created for a few internal projects. It's not like the biggest focus of
yeah.
us. Uh, they were good enough for those stuff, and I don't think that they were expanded much since then.
They
So
look
it's
quite nice. I actually like the UI side of the things on the charts. They look fun. They look fun. They look better than what we get with Chart.js. You have to customize there a lot, for example, if you're purely
the
using.
Taiga is organized in like consecutive libraries and some
Yeah.
additional ones. So this one is called add-on charts. So it's like
Ah,
a
yeah.
little separate. And the main stuff is Taiga UI slash CDK. This is the lowest
Yeah.
level part of the library. It doesn't have any styles, any components in there. It's just directives, services,
Yeah.
abstract, and all that. Then there's a core package, which
Mhm.
builds upon the CDK. It's the main components and the theme, all the colors, palettes, stuff like that. The basic components like text field, button, link, icon, and things like that. Then there's the kit library, which is the biggest one, which has all the like date pickers, sliders,
Like the components themselves built
yeah,
on top
the
of
actual
all the other
components that
stuff. Yeah.
and all other stuff goes into dedicated add-ons. Like add-on commerce has input credit card
Oh,
component with validators for credit card numbers and all that stuff like that. There's add-on table with table components, sorters and all things related to tables. There's add-on mobile for mobile
yeah.
specific things there. So this is how we break it into isolated packages.
So yeah, out of all of those things, I'm probably the most curious about actually like the CDK. And is there something that for people who are not familiar with Taiga, which we would say, okay, you know what, you should go to Taiga UI, like the CDK library, and you can use this and that tools, and that could help to develop your own components, even if you are not like
I need to
using
take a
the
look at the
built
source
ones.
codes. I'm not really sure how to answer that off the top of my head because mostly these things that we use ourselves and things that we need for our more
Yeah.
advanced components. One definitely useful component is the control abstract class that we use for all our controls.
Uh-huh.
It's a control value accessor that has all the things
Oh,
that you need when you
yeah.
create your own form component. I'm looking forward to signal forms because it's
Yeah.
much simpler than what we have now. But this one has already has the signal for the value. It has signal for touch
No.
state and things like
So it
that.
is using signals,
It's
just not signal forms.
yeah, it's using
Yeah.
signals underneath, and
Oh, that's
it's
great.
an abstract class that we extend with all our controls. So this one is pretty helpful. There's a lot of directives like the active zone I told you about. There's also an animated directive. This one I wrote about on Angular Space.
Yeah.
It's the thing that we made before the Angular animations went deprecated and we got the official support. But the official support comes with Angular 12, 20, right?
Yeah.
So in our library, we're still gonna use this directive. It's pretty much the same thing. It assigns classes when
Yeah.
the element disappears from the DOM, and if there's animation, they keep it in the DOM until animation finishes. So it's pretty much the same as the official thing that came a little bit late after that.
Yeah.
So this one thing, there's a focus trap which is in models, but it was developed quite some time ago. Right now, you could just use inert attribute on your app when you don't want it to be focusable, native and supported by everything. I think
No.
since Safari 16 or something like that. So it's well, not that important now
No.
to
Yeah.
manually control the focus. There's also a font size directive. It's a directive that watches for the system font size, and you can use it to scale your fonts um, in your
Oh.
app. If user comes from iPhone and they have like increased font in their UI in the system settings, like they have some
Yeah.
bad vision probably, or they're old, something like that, then you can automatically scale fonts in your application as well. Same with Android, but Android, not every Android works like that. They recently added the environment variable for CSS for the preferred font scale.
Uh-huh.
So this is something we will adopt a bit later. Right now, it doesn't work
No.
with it, but it works on iPhone and many Androids like including mine, Xiaomi. What else? What else? We had the let directive a long time,
Ah,
but it's going away. Finally,
I
we
think
have it.
NGRX also had that.
Yeah, yeah, it's something that
Yeah,
everybody created because this is everybody needed that,
yeah.
and it's
And
good
now
that
we have a
it's.
keyboard for that.
And what else? What else? Um, there's a visual viewport directive which you can use to
Yeah.
watch for the visual viewport changes. Like if you want something in your app to be shown at the bottom of the screen and then screen keyboard comes up, you want to move up right above the screen keyboard on mobile. This is
Yeah.
something you can do with visual viewport values, and you don't want to be manually watching for it. So we have a directive that just updates the CSS variables on top level
Mm.
components. So you can use it and don't worry about them being updated. It's actually also something that we use event plugins for. Like in um, Angular events, you can subscribe to global objects like window, colon, an event, and like document colon event, um, body, right?
Yeah.
The three global objects that they support. And in our case, we can use any global objects like a visual viewport, anything that is on window dot something. You can watch for events on there. I actually made a little PR for Angular to support this as
Yeah.
well, instead of hard coding those three things, but it was declined because something was probably in plans to
Yeah.
change this behavior completely for the global objects. So you can use ng event plugins, our library, to do that. So
Yeah.
this is pretty helpful, right? Especially when you're working with mobile stuff. And one thing that is very helpful is a helper to be able to use styles with directives. This is like one of the issue. I think it's the third most upvoted issue in Angular, that
Really?
directives cannot have styles. And
Yeah.
in our library, our philosophy is that if your component does not have any template, if its template is just ng content, then it should be a directive, not a component. So it
No.
doesn't waste
Yeah.
the component slot.
I
Because
agree
if
with that a lot,
you
actually.
only have one
Yeah.
component slot. This is actually something I'll be talking about a lot in Angular Tel Aviv conference next month. I will be explaining how our buttons are made, so I don't want to spoil much right now. But the idea is that you can create dynamic components, and dynamic components can have styles, and they don't have to be attached anywhere. You can
Mm.
just disable style encapsulation there, and use, instead of host, you use the selector of the directive, and you create this dynamic component when you create directive, and it's not attached to the DOM, it's just there for styles. And this allows you to use style sheets for directives, not just bind the styles on the host. The benefits of this are you can like write hover styles or before and after element styles, something that you cannot do in line with directives. You also have auto prefixer with the same pipeline that components have, so you don't need to worry about the browser support yourself. You can use mixins if you're using like SCSS or less. So this is a pretty cool thing that we like a lot and we use a lot.
Yeah.
And it comes with a CDK package.
Actually,
Which,
quite a bunch of useful things. I would hope that everyone watching would go and check that out, especially if you work on a large project that forces you to kind of build a
yeah,
lot
the
of
problem with this is that
shareable.
it's not
Yeah.
well documented because it's low level stuff that is used with some higher level stuff, and the documenting that it's
Well, you
time
said
consuming.
you said you have great source code. People will figure out.
There might be a little problem because my philosophy is no code, no problem. So there's very little code in some places, and it might be hard to figure out how it works and what it does, especially if it's decomposed to all the little services and directives, and every single thing is like 30 lines long, and combined together they do what they
Yeah.
need, and it might take some time to figure everything out. We use DI
Yeah,
a
I think
lot.
depends. Yeah, depends on from what philosophy the users are coming from, right? I usually like when I see that something is super simple and it is kind of composing from other things. And I mean that's a personal opinion. Maybe someone will disagree with me, but that kind of sounds simpler to me.
Yeah, to me too. But
When I see a wall of text, that's no good.
yeah, I get tired just looking at a long piece of code.
That's
I
actually really
anticipate
hard.
how much I'm gonna need to read and what cognitive load it's gonna take on me with trying to
Yeah.
understand this. Yeah,
I have been working on let's say a proof of concept. It's not Angular related. That's what was getting me very tired today. It's more like it's an AI powered app, you know what, and it's mostly for like internal usage. So uh, as the more I develop it, I'm not actually like developing it like an app and more like, okay, we can do this, we can do that, we can do that. I'm gonna show that we are using this and that. And it grows and grows and grows, and I don't care about the code quality like at all. And that's terrible because now when it kind of seems that okay, let's make this into a product, I'm now opening some files and facing like
yeah,
500, 600 lines of code. I wrote all of that. I haven't even used that much AI to like generate the code. It's mostly more or less simple stuff. And but even with that, I'm looking like, yeah, there's a bunch of functions here
yeah.
that
The
do a
tech
lot of
depth is
things. Yeah.
catching up with you one
Yeah.
day eventually.
I'm not sure even AI is gonna fix that because I had this idea of like telling it, okay, do this refactoring with this specific plan. I tried it once, didn't go well. Maybe I need to spend more time on that. But
Yeah,
yeah, my point being,
I'm pretty skeptical about AI written code. So whenever I work on some code, in the back of my head, I'm like trying to figure out if it's even ever going to be possible for AI to figure out that this is what we are doing. And
for me, like the
for most
biggest,
cases,
yeah, the biggest issue for me has been like it's not reliable for me. It's just not reliable. Sometimes I would say, okay, I don't know this domain very well. I know what I want, and if you give me some code, I would understand if it's correct or not, if that's what I want. And sometimes it would be great, like, yeah, sure, take this, it works. But very often when I think about tasks that are very simple and I don't want to do by hand, it somehow messes it up. And then okay, I'm like, okay, try this, retry this, and then I realize I've already spent more time than I would spend if I just code it. I mean,
yeah.
I'm okay with it. Sometimes, I mean, I would say even often I would use that, but like for stuff like refactoring, I don't know. I'm not convinced yet. So yeah, we have common ground there.
But I have Copilot in my web storm, and
Yeah,
it helps me with like autocomplete on steroids sometimes. But
yeah,
whenever I try to use AI for anything more meaningful or more complicated, I'm just I don't want to spend time figuring out what's wrong with this. And also, I just love
yeah,
writing code myself, so I'd
yeah,
rather spend time doing this. And one special thing about doing a component library like Taiga is that you learn a lot of low-level stuff
yeah,
with native events, native DOM behaviors, and a lot of front-end developers hate CSS. I love CSS. I started as a CSS layout engineer, I guess. I don't
yeah,
know how to call it, like 10 years ago, when if you had a block and you want to do a shadow around it, you had to do 1 pixel cells on
yeah,
each side and gradually change the black to white in the background. So it's been a huge journey since the beginning
yeah.
of CS.
CSS has changed a lot, like
Yeah,
a
it's very,
lot.
very powerful now.
Yeah,
So this is something that requires a specifically interested person in those things. So I get it. Like not everybody's gonna be interested in digging those like crazy CSS rules or specific browser behaviors with DOM elements and stuff like that. Some people are more interested in app side of things where they define business logic and how the data flows and things like that. But the making of UI library is a very different type of work. So this is something
Yeah.
I really love, and I've been doing it with this library for like, I don't know, 7 years, I guess, and I never get tired of that.
That's quite a journey right there.
Yeah, super happy that we managed to push it to open source because a lot of people build libraries like that internally, and
Yeah.
they never see the light of the outside world.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of benefits to pushing your stuff to open source from uh, perspective from other people. Like often somebody comes and asks if we would support like a right to left uh, languages, and
I think
we
you
figure,
do.
yeah, because
Yeah.
we added the support maybe a few months ago, maybe like half a year ago, and immediately when we did it, we started to need it internally, and this happens a lot. Like when your projects go international, you suddenly need to be able to customize like data format from like day, month, year to month, day, year, like things
I
like that. And a lot of those things come from external user base, like at least as a request. Sometimes there's a contribution, and it helps us anticipate our internal needs as well. And it's great to have like a fresh set of eyes on the thing to see what's missing, what can be improved, and also a lot of people might find bugs that we want to fix before our users find them, so
yeah.
it's also helpful. And like I don't see much downsides to open sourcing this thing. It's great.
No,
It
yeah,
was a
really.
journey. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask a very, very, very specific question because I was looking at the portal service that you have in. Which package is it? I think it's in the.
Portal, I
I
think
don't
it's
think
the
it's.
CDK.
Yeah.
It's a new thing that's coming in the V5.
Ah,
So
it's.
previously,
Yeah.
in Taiga 4, we had like a root component which wraps around all the content, and then there were layers. There were
Yeah.
dialogues, then drop downs,
Mhm.
alerts, and hints. And in 5, we are putting them all in one huge container, and they will be just shown in order of their appearance. Previously, we wanted to separate them so that uh, you don't have any issues with drop downs being
Yeah.
below dialogue, below alerts and stuff like that. But eventually we decided that it wouldn't be a problem if they will just be vertically stacked in the order of
Yeah.
appearance. So you'll never need something to be above something else that appeared later. So this is a big refactor that's currently in the works, and the portal service is part of that. But the overall concept of portals was there with Taiga from the beginning.
Yeah.
I think it might be came from React world actually, the idea of those things. So basically, when you have a button and a drop down, you have two options. You either show a drop down next to the button in the DOM,
Yeah.
or you put it somewhere else and position it next to the button. And if you use the first approach, it's much simpler. But then if your container has overflow hidden, then your dropdown will be
Yeah.
chopped off. It
Yeah.
will also have some issues if some elements have Z index; they will be put on top of
Yeah,
the.
that's why like lots of
Yeah,
libraries use kind of like append to the body instead and do all the
yeah.
positioning
Well,
stuff.
instead of
Yeah.
appending to the body, we use our own container
Yeah.
inside that, so that we can control the stacking order better. But technically, you can just append it to the body at the end. And one cool thing that's coming in browsers hopefully soon is the anchor CSS anchoring, I think that's called.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't need to manually position those drop downs.
Hmm.
You'll be able to just tell it through CSS that this drop down should be to the bottom of this element
Ah,
on page, and it would
that's
even
interesting.
automatically switch sides, directions, and all that. This is crazy when it finally comes. A lot of the code is going to be pushed out of the libraries.
Actually, Yeah, you know what? Is it possible to share the screen? That was actually what I was going to do. Thank you for bringing it to my attention because my question about portals is super specific.
All right.
Let me share my screen. This is ta-ta-ta-ta. I think I am sharing my screen. So my question was about once I actually did build a portal, and for our viewers, if you don't know what a portal is, it's essentially a way of injecting a part of your components template, not exactly injecting in terms of like dependency injection, but rather like putting a part of the template from your component into another unrelated component. So not like content projection. So content projection is when you put a part of your template inside a child component, right? But with portals, you can kind of show the stuff like completely elsewhere. So here's like an example. I'm sharing my screen, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So here, if you click add, you get this element here, and then you can also remove it. So it's one component, and you kind of send that part of the template there. And my question was, but I've actually once built a portal directive. I think it's in my article about Angular directive, the really long one. You guys watching should check it out if you're interested in knowing more about Angular
Angular,
directives.
huge.
Yeah. And the portal directive worked in a way that like you have this portal directive, you can put it, it's a structural directive, so you can just put it on some element and say that you need to sort of project this part of the template in a portal host that is elsewhere named like this. So you give the name, and let's say that name is somewhere else. It wasn't very good. There are some obvious glaring issues that you need to work out to work best for your app. But the idea was that like you do it all in the template, and of course there is a portal service, not only here but in that implementation too. So somehow you have to bind them. My question was, as you said, like portals is more of a new feature, right? If I understood you
I think this
correctly.
one is the low-level stuff that is there for a
Yeah.
while, but
Are there
yeah.
any plans for like more complex stuff, like a directive or maybe a component that could let you do like directly from a template or something like that?
I'm not sure what you mean by that. So the portal's already used in drop-downs, in
Yeah.
dialogues, toasts, alerts, and all that. If you want to show your content in the portal, there will be like a directive that you
Ah,
declare. The same stuff that you said, like the structural
yeah.
directive, or you can use the service, pass it a template or component
Yeah.
or a string. Like I said, with polymorphios, it can eat anything.
Yeah.
And this is like a built-in single portal in Taiga, and you can
Yeah.
also create your own because all of those stuff are abstract classes with some concrete implementations, but you can use them to build your own um, like stacks of
Yeah.
elements that are on top of everything else.
I want to also for a moment show a thing from not one thing, but like really interesting stuff in the util section of the library. So there's a bunch of stuff that you can use, right, in your apps too.
Yeah,
I
we
just
need
I
to.
just saw this one and I had to like share my screen. Yeah. So you can
We
use
actually want
this.
to move
Yeah.
those into a separate library because maybe you've heard of it. It's called NG Web APIs.
Ah, yeah, yeah. I think
Web
I've heard about
APIs
it.
for Angular. It's an open source set of libraries that we also support. It was initially created by me and Roman, the guy who worked with me on Taiga for a while,
Yeah.
and now it's in the same GitHub organization. So
Yeah.
these are the small wrapper libraries for native APIs to be used in Angular comfortably. So it's like, for example, intersection observer that you can use as a directive or a service that
Yeah.
is a regs.js stream rather than callback hell that we usually face in JavaScript. And there's a library called ng web API /common, which has all those tokens for global objects like window,
Uh-huh.
user agent, navigator. It's very helpful if you want to be able to support server-side rendering without much hacks and much usage of each platform browser around everything. You can just feed some mocks to the DI in
Oh.
place of those global objects, so you never get an error like you cannot read property user agent of undefined. Instead, it
Huh.
would be like an empty string or something like that. So it's type safe for server-side rendering, for unit tests like Jest, which are using also the virtual DOM, and it's very easy to test because everything is a dependency rather than a global object that you try to access, and it's easy to substitute it in tests, easy to substitute it in different environments. So this is another kind of library that comes with Taiga, and it's a separate one because you can use it separately, but like event plugins. But this is what we rely on Taiga as well. And all those tokens like iOS, Android, and all that, we plan to move them into a separate NG web API/platform where you can get tokens for the environment that you're working with. So if it's iOS, Android, if it's Chrome or something like that. But this is just in plans now. For a while, those tokens are in CDK package in Taiga, but come to think that they don't really need to be there
Yeah.
because it's a pretty standalone feature that can be useful for other people as well. So that's our plan.
Yeah, that's a lot of useful stuff actually. It's kind of contains way more than you would expect from your standards like component library. Lots of really useful things. So maybe my advice to anyone watching, if you haven't tried it out, you don't actually need to adopt the entire library. If you are already using something else, you still really need to check out lots of useful stuff in different parts, as we discussed already today. So yeah. I think everyone finds everything about Taiga UI super understandable. We don't get any questions today, which is a bit, you know, like, yeah,
Yeah,
guys,
probably
it all
people who
makes
are
sense.
interested a lot came to visit us today.
And yeah, there was like last week we had so much discussion because I was suffering a lot with the signal forms. If you haven't watched that one, and suffering in a good way. I was just learning. It was really good. Nice to know that you are also planning to like incorporate it quickly into Taiga, right? As far
Yeah,
as I
probably in
understand,
the
yeah.
next major release. We
Yeah.
want to shorten our release span. Right now, we release a new version every Monday, and sometimes Tuesday when
Yeah.
stuff uh, stacks up in the merge queue. And every like a year, a major release. But given that Angular releases every 6 months or so, we want to try to speed
Yeah.
things up and release major versions every 6 months if we can, and also like bump Angular version to the latest
Yeah.
long-term support version. So hopefully this is something we can get to with after the fifth major release. The fourth one was a very big one because it unlocked host directives for us, so we had to rewrite a lot of stuff
Yeah.
with this API in mind. And the fifth one is a little bit simpler, with then less stuff changed, and we rewrote all of our text fields into a unified approach with the TUI text field inside. There's an input with the directive like input date or select,
Yeah.
and these components are already available for the in the fourth version, but there's also a legacy package with uh, older version of those
Mhm.
components that we used in the third major release, and in fifth they will just go away, and not much new stuff is
Yeah.
coming. Mostly just legacy cleanup, so it's a bit
Well, yeah,
easier to get ready.
makes sense. I complained about no questions. Now we have a bunch of questions. Not super hard questions though.
All right.
Is Taiga free? Yeah, it is free, but
Yeah.
actually maybe a valid question is like I know that some other UI component libraries have some paid features, like PrimeNG has some style packs and themes that are paid.
No,
Not in
ours is
Taiga, as
completely
far as I
free, and
know.
there's no like
Yeah.
paid support or anything like that.
No.
There's in Angular Discord, there's a channel for Taiga UI,
No.
which you
Okay.
can use to ask questions, or you can file discussions on GitHub to get our attention there. We also have a Telegram group, but it's mostly for Russian-speaking audience. There's an English-speaking channel there so as well. So if you like Telegram, you can come there. And there's a, I think, Apache 2.0 license for it, so you can use it in your own commercial products. Just don't copy it completely. If you like copy it, you have to
Yeah.
use the README there with the credits given,
Yeah.
and you can use it in any commercial product you want. So that's basic Apache 2.0 license.
That's good to know. That's really great. And yeah, I'm just gonna take next one. Is Angular forms are stable to use? I mean, Signal? Yeah, no. I don't. They are not like released yet. They will be released in like in a more official fashion in version 21. I'm already mixing Angular versions. To be honest, on the last stream I also didn't remember. Is 21 the next one?
Yeah,
I think
I
it's the
think
next
so.
one, right? Yeah, and I don't know if it's going to be experimental or developer preview, but I guess it's going to be developer preview because it's quite mature at this point. I don't think it's going to be marked as experimental. I could be wrong though. But yeah, not stable yet, so definitely not until at least version 22. But I know you people, everyone is going to jump on that train and start. This happened with linked signals, and this happened with I think like destroy refs and the take until destroyed operator,
Mhm.
which like I learned a couple of months ago that became stable in version 19, but it was present since version 15
Yeah, there was
actually.
an issue with it
Yeah,
that if it fires when it's already destroyed, it threw an error instead of
yeah.
just silently doing nothing. It was crazy.
No one cared about that. Everyone, including me, was using take until destroyed and actually assuming
Yeah,
that yeah, it
yeah, that
works.
issue is
What
hard
else they are
to
gonna
give
check
up.
about it? But there was actually a possibility that could introduce breaking changes, and up until version 19, it was not marked as stable. So yeah, maybe signal forms could stay in developer preview for longer than one major release cycle.
We actually
Maybe,
have also the experimental package in Taiga where we put some components with not stable APIs that we want to try out.
yeah,
And usually these are the ones that get uh, shipped to the main packages, replacing the old ones when the
yeah.
next major release comes. So it's pretty good practice to use experimental APIs there to try them out.
Actually, yeah. We went zoneless in production as soon as it was experimental, worked flawlessly. Well, these are our people.
Yeah, actually, Taiga UI also should work with zoneless pretty
Yeah,
well. There were a few issues that were fixed, but since we already were using on push everywhere, it was pretty easy to
yeah,
support zoneless. And I think
yeah,
in the next version we will use zoneless in our demo app right away, since it's going to be stable there in
yeah,
Angular 19, and we will see all the bugs whenever we visit the portal. And also, all our demo portal pages are pre-rendered with the server-side rendering,
yeah.
so we'll also catch all the bugs that
Uh-huh.
might happen in the server-side rendering as well, and all the PRs that are going to the main branch are ran against a lot of screenshot tests, unit tests, integration tests. All the pages are pre-rendered, so it works. If some page gets into an infinite loop on the server, then the pipeline fails and all things like that. So I'm pretty happy about all the infrastructure around Taiga. It's a great contribution from mainly one member of our team there. Uh,
Yeah,
who works tirelessly to tighten up our linters to make sure everything is using the most advanced CI/CD stuff possible, and like since we support RTL languages now, all our CSS properties like top, left, button automatically replaced with
Yeah.
inline start, inline end, and things like that. So that's pretty cool. The infrastructure really can really help alleviate a lot of the uh, tedious tasks from developer, and automatic pre-tier, automatic lint fixes on every commit really help.
I bet it's a big process. So I quickly reviewed it, and there are really good UI components. I think they mean Taiga UI, especially input date. So yeah, here we have factual confirmation that because of this live stream, at least one person got really interested in
Yeah,
Taiga UI. Yeah, that's yeah.
actually, one other thing I really need to mention is the input date and all other our components. They're using mask called Mosquito. It's a
Oh
library
yeah,
for ink masking. Like when you type date, you will not get 32nd of January. It will be automatically corrected. If you type a credit card number, it will be separated by four numbers in block. If you type
yeah,
numbers, it
yeah,
would also be automatically formatted. So everything related to formatting of user input is done through a library called Mosquito. It's also a library we created and support. It's a separate project. It has like 1,500 stars on GitHub already. It's used in Ionic, like official recommendation, used in some other stuff. We try to keep an eye on packages and GitHub repositories that use it. I think some Siemens UI kit is using it
yeah,
already, and it's a very cool library. I'm really proud of it, but I'm not the developer of it. I am a team leader of a team, and we have a dedicated person who was the main architect of this library, and kudos to him. It's a great library. Uh,
yeah. I have
when we
actually used that one, and it's really good.
I think it's the masking solution for everybody. It's very flexible, allows you to do pretty much anything. And when we were developing our library, I mean Taiga, of course, we needed some masking solution. And for a while, we've been using one that stopped being supported. And at some point, we wanted to look at the alternatives, and we decided that it's time to make our own. And I think it went out pretty well.
Yeah,
It came out pretty well.
that's really good to know. I still think it's a mistake the Angular team won't allow setting on push as default. It's annoying having to add that on every single component.
Yeah, I agree.
Uh,
Make a standalone.
isn't Wait, isn't there like an option that would make the CLI generate on push
Yeah, I
components by
don't use
default?
CLI. I copy paste and edit. I'm
Yeah,
old
to be
school.
honest, I actually usually do that too because I like single file components and I don't care about the other files, so I can just make a TS file and actually Copilot will see that it's a component TS file and just start adding stuff. So yeah, and usually it also doesn't by default like predict that I would want on push, although that is manageable with the Angular MCP server. I promise one day we're gonna invite Jerome again and we're gonna talk about all that stuff. I don't know when yet,
Hopeful that
but
maybe it will
we will.
change someday when the signals are more widely accepted and
Yeah, yeah,
zoneless is also more widely used. So probably something like signal components, the concept where there is going to be
yeah.
no plain properties on the signals, and in that case, you don't need default changes action strategy ever. So maybe one day it will
Actually,
go away.
yeah. I think actually in most situations changing a component to on push, yeah, well, theoretically it is a breaking change, but in most cases it actually won't be. But the issue is like if it does break something, it's a bit subtle. So it might work, but there
The
might
problem,
be
I think
a
the problem is that
scenario.
if
Yeah,
you're using libraries, then library might not be well
yeah,
suited for on push. And if you're put on push as a compiler option, so the whole
it's
application
yeah,
is compiled on push, then you would have
yeah,
issues with those third-party
yeah.
dependencies. But I'm hopeful that someday maybe on push is going to be default.
Yeah, well, as far as I understand, Zoneless is going to be the default at some point when you create new apps. So yeah, although to some people sometimes confuse the two. If you have zoneless, that doesn't automatically mean that your components are on push. Actually, you for the best approach, you need to have like zoneless, and your components should be marked as on push, and in that way, the change detection won't ever touch other components. That's like the most, I would say, optimized way. So zoneless doesn't mean automatically it's on push and vice versa.
Unfortunately, the new Angular with event plugins always run change detection when event happens. So
Yeah.
previously we had a dot zoneless, so you could subscribe to events
Yeah.
like mouse move dot zoneless or scroll dot zoneless, stuff like that happens many times a second.
Yeah.
You could just ignore change detection on these events and declaratively subscribe to them
Yeah,
comfortably.
no,
But now
that's a really great one. Yeah, I have used that.
there's a issue I created to be able to opt out of change detection with event plugins. And Angular team said that's something on their radar. They wanted to
Yeah,
implement it in some way, but I don't know when it's coming.
yeah, makes sense. So, are we getting any more questions or not? Today is it's uh a little bit past 9 p.m. here, and usually this is the time when we are starting the live stream. So today we are doing an hour earlier, right? So if you guys, whoever is right now watching, if you allow me, I could actually like go home a bit earlier compared to the other stream. I think the longest I stayed last time with Signal Forms, I think I stayed up to like 11:10ish, I think, PM. Uh, so Alex, do you have something that you want to add? Like, did we miss
No,
something?
I think it's a good conversation as is. And if anybody has any questions, you can always ask me on Twitter, and
Yeah,
I'm easy to find there.
yeah. It was a great discussion. I mean, I always had again, as I said, I've never used the actual component library part of Taiga UI, but I have used the event plugin, and I bet I have discovered some new tools I didn't know that were there that probably will become a part of my, tool set when working on Angular.
Yeah,
But
one
it's
thing that
really
I
good.
can add
Yeah.
actually to this part is that Taiga is very tree shakeable. So if
Yep.
you use anything from it, you can rest assured that other stuff is not getting into your bundle. Everything is broken into secondary entry points very deep, and all the imports internally are also from the deepest entry points, so it can be used um, with micro front ends as well. So
Yeah.
only the stuff that you're actually using is getting into the bundle. So
To be honest, I didn't even have any like doubt about the library being tree shakeable. Somehow I was like, yeah, that's not a question I'm going to ask. I think I'm pretty sure that it is. And wait, did you see this question? Is the library tree shakeable and just
no,
answered
I
it?
just
Or
when you mentioned that you
yeah,
saw some things that you might want to use,
yeah, yeah.
you can add CDK package and use just the things you need.
Yeah, so yeah, we actually just answered that question. It is very tree shakeable. So yeah, feel free to check out anything. Actually, I am recommending to check it out. You will definitely find something useful. Even if you are using another component library at this point, there's a bunch of stuff that you can do. But the UI components are also great. I actually like the default designs. I guess those are the ones I see in the something is not all right with my camera in the documentation website. Yeah. So
The
uh,
components are very much not nested in terms of
yeah.
DOM structure, so it's easy to override default styles. They're mostly
Mm.
all on the host. There's appearance directive that is responsible for colors and interactive states like hover, pressed, for buttons, chips, uh, badges, and all that. So it should be pretty easy to write your own colors
Yeah.
for buttons and stuff and override default. values. There are also some global CSS variables like heights for different sizes of inputs,
Huh.
paddings, border radiuses, and also the icons. We're using Lucid icon pack. It's an open source icon pack, but you can use icon fonts with Taiga or just any other
Yeah.
uh, icon pack that you like. It's a little bit tiresome to replace all the icons in the components, but they all come from DI. No icon is hard coded. Every icon, like calendar icon in input date, comes from input date options token, so we can replace it with something else.
Sounds like the most, I would say, flexible, reusable library I've heard about in a while.
Hopefully, someday I will try to find some time to like make a DI helper to replace all icons with
Yeah.
material icon font, so like people can strap a material icon theme on Taiga with just one import, but not sure when I'll get time to do that.
Yeah. Uh, I think I lost my, yeah. I've lost this page for a moment. So yeah, what can I say? Thank you very much, both for Taiga UI and today's discussion. Uh, I hope lots of people will get to know about this really great library and check it out and very probably find it useful. So yeah, I don't think we have more questions. I don't think I can come up with more questions at this point. So
Yeah,
yeah,
thank you
thank you
so
very
much.
much for
Thank
coming.
you everybody for coming.
Yeah. Uh, Come back anytime you want. I always would be happy to have you on. And everyone, thanks for joining. Thanks for your questions. See you next week. If I'm correct, we're gonna have another guest. So yeah, definitely come back next week. Yeah. Thanks everyone. Bye.